This video is for people who have noticed a correlation between themselves, their life, their spiritual growth, and the full moons, the new moons, the eclipses. You can probably feel them coming maybe a week or even more out. You probably start to feel more sensitive, more emotional. You might feel an acceleration of change happening in your life, like there's this sixth sense that you're in the midst of change, going more and more into the unknown. And it can be kind of an unsettling feeling, honestly. And yet, this is where the breakthroughs happen. This is where the personal, emotional, and spiritual growth spurts occur that can also result and manifest in incredible positive change. You may have also noticed that every single moon or astrological alignment of that nature, eclipses, new moons, full moons, they have their own particular flavor. They have their own particular lessons to teach you. They come with their own challenges, yes, but there's also their own types of opportunities for growth and expansion and forward movement in your life. And what I'm going to do in this video is share with you 5 things I think you should know about this particular full moon happening on January 25th, 2024. And it's a very powerful moon. You might have saw in the picture there, it said, huge shift coming. And what this really means, a better way to put it, but I couldn't fit it all in the picture, is that you've already made a lot of shifts, my friend. You've already, have you not? This last year, this last couple of months, maybe this last week, your inner shadow, your conditioning, it can no longer hide from your conscious awareness the way it used to. And you're starting to become hip to how you tick, why you are the way you are, why you think the way you think. And from this awareness, this expanding awareness, new choices, fresh new ideas, fresh new inspirations, positive change is coming and is here. And this full moon is going to illuminate the huge shift you've already made within yourself. But anyway, I know I've kind of said a lot without really saying all that much at all, which is why, again, I'm going to break it down now, finally, into 5 more specific themes to help you get the most out of this powerful full moon. Welcome to my channel. If I didn't say, my name is Victor, and it's a pleasure to have you here, my friend. Number 1, the splitting of the tracks. This is not my phrase necessarily. This is something a channeler named Bashar says. And what he means by that is that it's a way of explaining kind of what's happening on the planet right now. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. You probably sense it, that there's a big evolutionary leap taking place right now. There's a new energy that's been kind of pumping itself into our atmosphere, if you will. And it's creating a tremendous amount of change, which is also why there's the climate change and the upheaval in the political systems and things of that nature. And there's also that same effect happening on an individual level. That's why people like you are finding themselves drawn to videos like this. You're probably on a spiritual path. This is probably not news to you, what I just said. And you're probably making a lot of change and growth in your life. And you're kind of heading in one direction. You're kind of ascending, as some say, in an upward way, even though there's probably ups and downs within that. But then on the same planet, there are millions, billions of people who are not doing any of that. There are people basically being given this same exact opportunity, but they're not changing. They're a lot of it's due to fear. They're afraid of change, so they're clinging to the bitter end. They're clinging to the old ways of thinking, ways of doing things, ways of living their life, even though it's becoming increasingly obvious that it ain't gonna work anymore. But people like you, you're open to it. So the splitting of the tracks. What I'm saying is that there are 2 different directions people are going. And Bashar talked about a time, and many other people talked about this as well, this like splitting of worlds, where for a time, everything's kind of coexisting all at once. But now it's becoming more and more obvious that it's becoming harder for these 2 kind of populations to come together. There's becoming, at least especially with you, more of an awareness of the incompatible nature of the 2 types of frequencies. And this can bring up all sorts of different emotions and different feelings and things like that. I know for a long time when I felt pulled in like this unexpected direction, I felt a lot of guilt. I just felt bad, like I was abandoning people who I did and do have a bond with. But I noticed myself changing so quickly and other people just not. And over time, there became a lot less to relate on a practical level. I found that we just weren't really seeing each other. We could never really like come together. Anytime we did, it felt kind of forced. And anytime we forced it, it felt really off to me. But because I'm kind of a stubborn mule, you could say, in spite of my intuition being very clear with me, like, this is just what's happening. This is where you're going, and it's okay, and they're going to be fine too, and you have the right to be happy and pursue your dreams, etc. Nope, I'm a loyal person. I'm going to stick around. And it never worked out. And there was this one time, I'm referring to my friends in this particular scenario now, my high school buddies, who we were very close. And this was all happening many, many years ago. And this concert came around, this Guns N' Roses concert. And I remember thinking, like, if there's one thing that could finally reunite us and rebond us together, it's this GNR concert. We were so excited. And I'll never forget just how bizarre it was when I finally showed up there. And I could literally tell on a visual level that we didn't belong together. It was like oil and water vibrationally. And it was just so awkward and so forced. And I just know we all knew that this is maybe the last time we'll hang out in this way. And over the years, I've come to peace with that. And even though I had that splitting with those folks, I did carry a little bit of guilt until years later what I found happened. I found that because I finally listened to my heart. It was my heart leading me, your heart leading you as well. I listened to my heart. I chose to trust it. I chose to roll with it. Over the years, there have been many people who I would have never in a million years have expected to, but they reach out and they say, hey, Vic, I see your videos. I see what you're doing. I want to learn more. Hey, Vic, I think I'm going through a spiritual awakening. Vic, I'm seeing 1111 and I saw your freaking video on YouTube. So the point is, by you being yourself, you're being an example. You're a shining light for folks. Whether they choose to follow you or not all of them need to. It's not our job to make everyone improve themselves in the way we think they ought to, but we owe it to them to give them at least an example. And if you aren't going to follow your heart and pursue your dreams and reach your potential, they might not have a single person in their life to show them that that's an option. We're all living on planet Earth. We're all immersed in these new frequencies, and we're all given the opportunity to use them as fuel, to take the chaos and the upheaval and use it as fodder for our spiritual growth. That's an option. And as we do that, life gets better. And for me, it was helpful to see people doing that because they inspired me. And you might be ready to be that inspiration for other people. So anyway, a word of advice before I move on is don't let guilt hold you down. It's not going to be successful anyway. Your heart is going to win in the end. And that's best for you, for sure, and also them. Theme number 2, transcendence. I say that, you might be skeptical. Vic, I don't feel like I'm transcending anything. Transcendence often isn't this big obvious moment where we have this discernible transition out of our conditioning, limitations, old beliefs, etc. There's oftentimes not an awareness this shift has happened, but it does tend to slowly over time sneak up on us. And over time we become aware that something's changed, and the best way to know is by your responses to old things, old scenarios, old triggers, circumstances. May have produced a very predictable emotional result in you for a long time, as long as you can recall, and all of a sudden, you're finding yourself more like unfazed. And it's not this big like, whoa, look how far I've come. It's like, interesting. I normally would have freaked out with this scenario, and I don't feel that bad. That is huge, my friend. I'll give you an example to kind of explain what I'm trying to convey here. About a week ago, I had this dream, and it was one of those dreams that I kept waking up through the night and then falling back asleep and going right into that same dream. And it's a dream I've had many times, like over the last 10, 15 years. And it's a dream where my wife, Patty, of 15 years of marriage, she decides to leave me for another man. And it's always the same type of vibe where she's like very like carefree, like, oh yeah, I'm going to just go and deal with it. I'm moving on. And I'm like, what? You know? And anyway, I woke up thinking like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't had that dream in a while. Maybe this stuff's coming up for me. And then later that day, we went to the gym. I took my wife to a gym I go to. And two of her new buddies, her new friends were at the gym, and it was kind of synchronistic. And they came up, and I noticed one of the friends was this really big, attractive man, like really, really big, like probably 6'4", like 240, jacked. And he was a really attractive guy. And then later, and I didn't think much of it, but I was like, wow, that guy's pretty freaking buff. Later that day, my wife said, listen, I have to tell you something, honey. Somebody was flirting with me at this recent retreat. My wife goes to these like plant medicine retreats. She said, somebody was flirting with me recently and just wanted to tell you. And I was like, oh, okay. Who was it? Out of curiosity. Oh, it's that guy we saw at the gym. And like in the past, all of that combined would have just thrown me. I know it's ridiculous. I've been married a long time. Please, we all have our stuff. This is my stuff. But it would have made me very insecure. It had brought up all my deep unworthiness issues of childhood, and I would have been thrown into a complete frenzy. And it was like a perfect storm of different things layering up upon one another. And I was like waiting for it to happen. I was like, man, any minute now, I'm going to be really upset or really afraid or really whatever. And it never came. And I was like, oh, nice. Oh, how nice it feels to not be a slave any longer to my outdated conditioning. So maybe you'll start to become aware of your own new responses to old circumstances, my friend, to show you just how far you have come. Number 3, you might feel the need to strengthen your energetic boundaries, which might sound like, what did this guy just say? It's normal during full moons and new moons, just to say initially, to become more sensitive, more empathic, basically, more aware of people's moods, more aware of your sometimes tendency to take energy on and carry it on your back. But you might already have been noticing this increased empathy and sensitivity happening anyway. The full moon might be highlighting it or magnifying it temporarily, but still in general, you're probably becoming more sensitive, more empathic, realizing you're picking up more stuff than maybe you used to. And I noticed this last week when I did too many coaching calls where I normally do like these big Zoom sessions. I have a few different coaching programs I do. And I'll have like an hour, 2-hour session with anywhere between like 10 and 15 or even a couple hundred people sometimes, depending on which one I'm doing at a time. And I'm coaching them and working with them and holding space for them. And normally it's fine. But I happened to do 4 in a row last week, Monday through Thursday. And I felt after that 4th one, I felt like invaded, energetically invaded. I felt like all the energy, you could say, was somehow stuck in my body. And in the past, I would have been fine with that. But it's almost like once I have too much, my psychic defenses are down, and then it's like a free-for-all within Victor's consciousness. Everything just leaps into it. And anyway, I woke up that next night, like in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, just feeling no one did anything in particular. It was just holding space for people as they're sharing their deep stuff over and over and over again. It got to me. But that was my body's way of saying, listen, bro, you got to either chill out on the coaching. You got to sage yourself. You got to do something because you're being affected, whether you like it or not, whether you believe in it or not. This is happening and you don't feel good, do you? So anyway, just a word of the wise. I'd almost be curious if you're noticing this as well. Are you absorbing more stuff than usual, finding yourself more empathic, more sensitive, more like your intuition's telling you be wise to be more protective of what you allow in to your consciousness? Maybe it's not people. Maybe it's what you're watching at night. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's food. It could be anything where you'll start to intuitively be aware of the incompatible energies coming into your life, into your body, into your awareness at like a dosage that's not ideal for you. You might have to switch up the dosage a little bit or put up a wall or set a boundary. And it's a good thing. It's okay. And a lot of empathic people I know, they have like qualms with this. They feel like, God, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. They have like this almost victim mentality with it, honestly. But to me, it's like a direct reflection of growing awareness. Enlightenment, spiritual awakening, all this is like, it's all awareness. It boils down to just awareness of the moment, awareness of the self. And part of that awareness is it manifests in our physical body. And that's a good thing because it helps us make better choices. Before, I think we were allowed to kind of go wherever we want in life, unaware of when there's a person or a circumstance that's not at all ideal for us. We had no sort of psychic bells going off in our head. We would just, oh yeah, this seems okay. And then boom, we get smacked in the face with some type of learning lesson, wondering, how did this happen? Where did I go wrong? Now you know when you're about to go wrong, almost instantaneously. You can feel it energetically. And yeah, it's slightly inconvenient, I suppose, but it's also knowledge is power. It's awareness. You can make wise choices of the people you surround yourself with, the environments you subject yourself to, the things you allow into your mind, and you feed yourself mentally. You can make it all stuff, people, etc. that's ideal for you, that helps nourish you and help you grow and stay inspired and tapped in and feeling good and groovy and loving. So it's like we've been given like the cheat codes to the test of life. And now it's easy, but now it's about applying them. It's applying the knowledge is like the tricky part sometimes. But as you and I do that, our life will improve dramatically quicker than ever before due to this sensitivity. Number 4, I just wrote one word, and the word is purge. In spite of all the things I'm saying, parallel to that, you might also be going even deeper into your shadow, into healing. And though you may have made some big changes and breakthroughs that are now becoming evident to you, you might also still be going back in to your shadow for some more healing. And usually the onset of this transformational type of cycle, it feels like you made a wrong turn and you're spiraling downward. And it might start to reflect in your dreams initially as well. Your dreams all of a sudden are kind of like weird and dark and kind of heavy, and you're feeling more emotional than normal, but there's no clarity. You don't know what's happening. You just know you're feeling off, like something is happening and you don't like it. It doesn't feel good and you don't know what it is. And then usually as it progresses even further, this circumstance, this healing crisis, if you will, starts to play out a little bit in your external life. Sometimes through synchronicity, sometimes through minor problems, like not big deal, nothing that's a big deal, but little disturbances that kind of surprise you, but trigger these energies even more so. And usually at this point, it can start to feel a little bit like what, almost like something bad's about to happen. Like life is turning on me. I feel like things are not going very well. And all of that is basically life just arranging itself around your psyche through synchronicity to show you your next step, your next soul lesson, the next thing you have the chance, if you want, to overcome and completely transcend, heal, move beyond. And that's the other part of all this is aha moments, breakthroughs, insight, life-changing self-discoveries, new insights to your purpose, the next steps on your path, super amazing, awesome downloads, creative inspirations fueling your body, showing you that, listen, I know this was not comfortable, but as you let go of the old and close one door, guess what? Other doors that are far more ideal for you, they begin to open, and now you can walk through. Now you have the vibrational lightness and the freedom to walk through these new doors. So fear not, my friend. If this is all happening, if any of the different parts I described to you are happening, good, because new doors opening every single time is the result of all that. And just to give you a clue, something I've noticed as of like I didn't plan on talking about this, but it just kind of popped in my head. A theme I've noticed, for what it's worth, in the comment sections, in my coaching calls, myself, friends, etc., the type of purging that seems to be happening is of a very, very, very deep nature, having to do with beliefs, you could say, formed about ourselves at a very, very young, formidable age. Early childhood conclusions about our value, about our worth. And because little kids naturally want to understand the things that are happening to them. When something happens that's not good, a trauma, even a minor one, we tend to conclude eventually that there must be something wrong with me. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened, obviously. Because it's so risky to blame it on mom or dad because they're our caretaker or whoever else is raising you. So we just internalize and personalize everything, even things that have nothing to do with us, things that are not at all our fault. We think it's because of that. And then we form this belief at a very ripe age when our brain and our wiring is still developing. And we basically burn into our psychology, into our brain, these false beliefs. I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. I'm not worthy. And then we go through our entire life trying to compensate for that false belief or trying to hide it, trying to hide the pain of that truth from ourselves. And this is where these very dysfunctional patterns, Carl Jung would call it like when there's something like that that would happen, a trauma, there's this split that occurs essentially. There's the part of our psyche that is unable to deal and metabolize, is the way he puts it, the trauma, the experience is too much for us. And as little kids, we can't go anywhere. So what do? We hide it in the dark corners and recesses of our psyche. And this other part of it, they call it the dyad. The one part goes into hiding, the innocence, your creativity, your light, it goes into hiding. It decides it's not safe here anymore. And guess what happens? This other part of your psyche, they call it the protector archetype. Then we have these behaviors where we have to grow up quickly, or we harden up. We put heart walls around ourselves, or we become go-getters. We're going to become so rich and famous and successful that no one will see. I won't even see this wounded part of myself. I'm saying kind of a lot here, but the point is you might start to have that reflected, your core belief. You might have some kind of similar fundamental belief developed from a trauma or even just certain things that have happened in your life, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, which is ridiculous. It's not true. But until, as Carl Jung says, until we bring this belief truly into conscious awareness, it runs the show. It runs our life. We suppress and don't allow our potential light, creativity, innocence, love to be present in ourselves, in our psyche, in our sense of self, in our life. And some of the things that may be happening in your life right now might be bringing awareness to that insidious belief that's not true, that you have concluded about yourself. Been watching this play out with a friend as a good example. The other day he hit a deer, and it was not his fault. We live in Austin where there's deer all over the place basically, and they sometimes just sprint full speed right into the road, and sometimes you can see them and you can stop, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. Like my buddy, he was just driving along, he wasn't speeding or anything. This deer just freaking ran into his car, and it was sad. He was really sad about it. He's a sensitive guy. He felt really bad about it. But I was listening to his story, and he showed me his car, and he's like, "Man, look at my car." And he felt so bad about the deer, and I noticed his first the way he interpreted it was, what did I do to deserve this? Why did I do this to myself? Why is this? He thought it was his fault. And sometimes things are your fault, but I could just tell this was not the case. It was so obvious. But this circumstance had nothing to do with him, just random deer running in the road. His instant reaction is, I must have done something wrong. And I was like, whoa, bro, why do you assume this is your fault? But this is a good example of I'm not saying you're going to hit something with your car, but little things can happen. He was safe, it was fine. Little things can happen, and a lot of times just to show us our reaction. Just to show us our reaction. And because you're going through this awakening, you might start to finally see how ludicrous your initial instinctual reactions are. Why would I think that? Why would I assume it's my fault? Why would you assume it's your fault? Why would you assume there's something wrong with you? Maybe mom or dad were having a bad day that day. That's an example. Anyway, I didn't mean to go into such a long thing here, but I wanted to kind of bring that to light for you in case this can kind of help you along And in case life is trying to show you where you have this limiting belief. And if you can start to work with that, it's like you become almost reborn. You get to really tap into true wholeness, my friend. And in the past, it was a very rare thing. Not many people were able to do it, but now it's happening more and more. It's happening faster and faster. And this is a good opportunity to make massive progress in that type of direction, healing your core wound. Number 5 is going to be kind of a spin-off of number 1. I wrote down creating your own reality bubble. What reminded me, like what sort of inspired this was I've been watching this awesome Tupac documentary. I'm a big Tupac fan. He's a rapper. And Tupac, a lot of people, they judge him as this like crass, obnoxious, thug, basically. And though that may have been one side of him to an extent, he also was an extremely intelligent, wise, sensitive person that was completely fueled by a strong, almost unwavering sense of purpose. And that is, he was aware. He grew up very poor, and he grew up in poverty, and he saw the different challenges that the African American and the people in his community were suffering. And he saw that nobody was doing anything about it. He saw that everyone was just fighting amongst themselves, and he saw this huge problem. And he made a choice at a pretty young age to commit his life to it. His mom was also a Black Panther, and he has that kind of in his blood, you could say. But he made this choice to do anything he possibly could to help his people. And he did, for good or bad, love him or hate him, he did. That was what drove his life. But during an interview, one of his interviews, he said, listen, man, I see what's going on. I see nobody doing anything about it. He says, but there's people like your Martin Luther Kings and your Malcolm X's and people like that really stood for something. They finally stood up and said, this is not right. And they tried to create this change that they knew would never happen in their lifetime. And Tupac said the same thing. He said, I don't expect things to change in my lifetime, but someone's got to do something. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to live and die by this sort of path, he said. And you might sort of relate with that in a way where you might look out into the world and see like there's so much going wrong. And there might be particular things that really strike a chord with you. Maybe it's the oceans. Maybe it's what's happening to planet Earth. Maybe it's what's happening with certain the wars plural taking place. There might be something that really hits home with you. And also you might feel kind of like Tupac, like, man, I want to do something, but at the same time, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for one aspect of like this 3D world we live in. It seems a little bit like it'd be far-fetched for it to somehow wrap itself up and cleanse itself in our lifetime. But what I said about having your own reality bubble is realizing that even in this circumstance that's not ideal, you can create your own little slice of heaven. You can live an amazing life and you can do good. And you don't have to take on the responsibility like Tupac. It's like a new way of being a revolutionary where you just get to be your true self and follow your excitement, follow your joy. And for a lot of you, your joy might lead to some type of tangible expression of purpose. Maybe you actually go and clean up the oceans or start some kind of organization that does that. But you get to, in this circumstance, you don't have to, even though it looks bad and we can see all this crazy shit happening, you don't have to necessarily be that affected by it. You can create your own little reality bubble in a sense. And you are, by following your heart and following your passion and your joy and looking at yourself when life is encouraging you to do that. And you might just find over time, you find yourself, even though there's things going on in the world, you might find yourself somehow just not affected by it that much. And sometimes even within these challenging circumstances, you can still have your own little bubble. I remember when I can't say the word because it can like affect the algorithm, but when that thing happened a few years ago and most people were reporting all these horrible things, obviously, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to it. It's definitely true. But like for me and almost everybody I knew, my close friends, we all were able to move to Sedona for like that couple of years. And you didn't have to go by a lot of the rules people were going by. And we were able to run our businesses and help people and live like a really kick-ass. We had an amazing couple of years. And that's just an example of how you can have your own little pockets And it didn't come easy. For the longest time, I was swept away with all the madness. It took time and hard work and commitment. And over the years, I've developed a degree of freedom of that. And I'm just trying to tell you that your own spark, your own intuition might be trying to help you do that. Maybe you've already done that. And this is not me trying to tell you to do anything. This is just, I guess, an observation, honestly. I'm just like, it's kind of an interesting new way of going about life and dealing with changing the world. As Bashar says, we're not going to change the world. We change ourselves. And then we can shift ourselves to other parallel realities that are reflective of the new us. And that's what I believe you and I have been doing for a long time. And similar to what I said with point number 1, you might start to notice it more and more, just how much you're changing, just how less and less affected you are by a lot of the dramas taking place on life. Not that you don't have to be sensitive towards it, but you might just find yourself being able to help and contribute in a new way by being yourself, following your path. It's real simple, but not easy. Before I go, my friend, if you find yourself like you're wrestling with some emotions that you have not been successful yet of letting go of or releasing, and you feel kind of stuck, I'm going to share with you a free ceremony. It's a breathwork ceremony. Somatic release breathwork is something I've done for over 10,000 people. It's a lot more powerful than you might expect, and it's a modality that allows you to really cleanse yourself on a very tangible physical level of these pent-up energies. And it's free. I'm going to leave a link down below at the top of the description box. Check it out if you'd like. You just got to put in your email, and then I'll send it right to you. And it's a follow along, about a 45-minute thing. And it's pretty powerful, my friend. It's something that's really helped me and pretty much everybody I know in a very profound way. So there's that. And I'll see you in the next video, whenever that might be. Have an amazing day. Thank you for watching, and much love.